And then you touched on Tottenham there and their stadium. Well, it's come out this week that they're valuing the club now at 3.75 billion and looking to sell a 10% stake in the club. Do you think that's a realistic valuation given how they've progressed forward?
I think it'll be very difficult. I mean, you're talking about a club that's not really won anything for quite some time. It has done really well in terms of the way that they've managed their cost base. And clearly they have now a fantastic stadium. It's London-based. There are some potential upsides in terms of naming rights and things like that. But the idea that Daniel Levy and his commercial team have not tried very extensively to get naming rights for that stadium, you can imagine that they've tried very, very hard, and therefore you can also envisage that there aren't lots of people are wishing to pay significant amounts for that naming right. So I think it's difficult to justify a valuation anywhere near £3.75 billion for Spurs, particularly for a minority stake of that nature. If they could get it, then it'd be fantastic, especially because the way that the article in the Times was written suggests that what they would be doing with the money that was raised on that 3.75 billion valuation is that they would be raising it to spend on the team and on infrastructure within the club. So this would be new money coming into the club as opposed to the existing shareholders selling out part of their holdings. So that would be good news for Tottenham fans, because clearly what would happen was that you'd get, let's say, for the sake of round numbers, £375 million would come in for the sale of that equity, would come into Tottenham Hotspur in cash. They would then be able to spend that money themselves in cash, subject to PSR compliance. And all that would happen to the existing shareholders they would be diluted down because they would have issued 10% additional equity. So rather than in the Glazer situation where the Glazers were effectively, the Glazer family were able to sell a lot of their shares to Ratcliffe, and Ratcliffe paid the Glazers largely. There was an element of new money going into United as well, but only a very small amount. So the vast majority of the money that Ratcliffe put in went straight into the pockets of the Glazers. The Tottenham situation would be different in that it appears that what they're talking about is selling new shares in Tottenham Hotspur. So Tottenham Hotspur issue those shares, and Tottenham Hotspur as a club receives the cash and not the existing owners. And so it would be good for the fans, because they would immediately have a war chest to compete more in the transfer market. But the flip side of that is what would likely then happen is they'd spend money in the transfer market that would have an impact on the wage bill. And one of the key selling points of Spurs would then be slightly sort of diluted, because what would happen is that the wage bill would go up. And one of Spurs' major achievements over the last 10 years has been to manage to qualify for the Champions League with a wage bill that has been maybe 25-30% less than any of the rest of the top clubs. Arsenal have reduced their wage bill over the last couple of years to a level similar to Spurs, but last season it would have been considerably higher. And Spurs are really miles behind this. They've got a wage bill of around £250 million, whereas most of the teams in the top, the rest of the big six, have got a wage bill over 300. So they've done really well to even compete with that wage bill. But the more you spend on players coming in as transfers, the more you're going to lose control of the wage bill. So that's going to be their challenge. Anyway, we'll see. I think it'd be very hard to get 3.75 billion valuation for a minority stake in Spurs.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.